After Wano, we know Luffy has become a literal god. But what if we took the most OP devil fruits in the One Piece verse and fed them to the crew members who don't have one? The mangaka of the series, Eiichiro Oda, has actually revealed some of his picks in SBS Corners. But today, we're going to go a step further. And trust me, by the time we get to Nami, you'll see why Oda didn't give every crew member a devil fruit already. First up, let's talk about the vice captain, the king of hell, Zoro. Now, in an SBS, Oda mentioned that Zoro's sword would eat Kaido's dragon fruit. And sure, a sword that turns into a dragon is cool, but it's a bit gimmicky. We want Zoro himself to be the monster. If Zoro were to eat a fruit, there's only one fruit that fits his philosophy of becoming the ultimate weapon, the Super Nomi, aka the Dice fruit. Yes, the fruit originally held by Mr. One, Daz Bonez. Now, hear me out. I know Zoro defeated him, proving that haki and skill surpass raw devil fruit ability. But here's the thing. Imagine if Zoro, a man who trains until his muscles scream, had a body made of literal living steel. Zoro's entire goal is to cut anything and everything. With the Super Nomi, he becomes the sword himself. Every kick, every punch, every tackle becomes a slashing attack. Believe it or not, this is just scratching the surface. Now imagine if Zoro awakened his paramecia. He could turn his environment into a graveyard of swords. Imagine unlimited blade works, but in One Piece. Zoro could manifest blades from the ground, the walls, the very air. Plus, think about his three-sword style. He holds one blade in his mouth. With this fruit, he could morph his arms into blades, essentially giving him 5-sword style, or 9-sword style, without even needing Ashura. And for defense, he becomes as hard as steel permanently. Combine that with his armament haki, and you have a defense that even Kaido would struggle to break. He essentially becomes a living black blade. In this world, taking the title of the world's strongest swordsman would become Zoro's biological right. Technically, would he also become the world's strongest sword? Next, we have the god himself, Usopp. Now, I'll tell you why his fruit is controversial in a second, but first, let's look at what Oda suggested. Oda suggested the pocket fruit for Usopp, which is useful, sure, infinite storage for his gadgets, but here's where it gets interesting. Usopp is a sniper. His job is to hit the target, no matter the distance, no matter the obstacle. Currently, Usopp relies on his observation haki and calculation, but if we want to make him the most feared sniper in history, we have to give him Van Augur's Warp fruit, which gives the user the ability to teleport themselves and anything they touch. Now, think about how insane this would be for a sniper. Usopp could position himself anywhere on the battlefield in an instant, pick the perfect shot, then teleport away before anyone even knows where he is. But the craziest part is that Usopp could teleport his crewmates out of danger. Imagine Luffy getting overwhelmed in a fight, and suddenly Usopp teleports him across the battlefield to safety. This fruit would also turn Usopp into the ultimate support character, while still letting him fight from a distance like he always does. And since Usopp's biggest weakness is close combat, being able to teleport away the second someone gets near him would solve that problem completely. God D. Usopp, strongest character EOS confirmed. Now, let's look at our cook, Sanji. And while we'll get to the absolute beast that Franky becomes later, Sanji deserves some attention first, because his fruit is probably the most unexpected choice. Sanji has always wanted the invisibility fruit for, reasons, and Oda suggested the swim fruit, which lets him swim through the ground. That works for stealth, but Sanji is a fighter who relies on two things, speed and heat. His Diable Jambe generates fire through friction and passion. He moves so fast he vanishes. So what's the ultimate evolution of speed and heat? The Pika Pika Nomi, also known as Admiral Kizaru's Glint fruit. Yes, this is the perfect match. Sanji's fighting style is aerial and based on kicks. Light has no mass, meaning he can move at literally the speed of light. Acceleration is power, Kizaru says. Can you imagine a Diable Jambe kick delivered at light speed? The impact would practically be a nuclear explosion. Sanji already specializes in observation haki. Combined with the ability to turn into light, he would be untouchable. He could zip across the battlefield, save Nami, kick a Yonko commander, and be back in the kitchen before the cigarette ash falls from his mouth. Furthermore, Sanji can fly with Skywalk. With the light fruit, he beams through the air. He could fire laser beams from his eyes or feet. But most importantly, Sanji is the MVP tactician of the crew. He often disappears to sabotage the enemy. Being made of light would allow him to travel through keyholes, reflect off mirrors, and infiltrate any base instantly. While the swim fruit fits the stealth aspect, the Pika Pika Nomi fits the black leg combat style perfectly. He would essentially become a Super Saiyan. Now, here's where things get super! This one is a match made in heaven. Oda gave Franky the arms fruit. Baby Five's fruit, which turns body parts into weapons. It's cool, but Franky's already a human weapon. He built himself that way. He doesn't need magic to turn his hand into a gun. He installed a gun. What Franky needs is a way to manipulate the raw materials of his trade. He needs the Jiki Nomi, aka the Magnet fruit. This is Eustace Kid's fruit. Franky is a shipwright and a cyborg. His entire body is metal. With this fruit, he has total control over his own body without needing hydraulics or cola. He could reassemble himself on the fly. But think about his General Franky Shogun. Currently, he has to keep it docked in the sunny. With the magnet fruit, Franky could pull scrap metal from enemy ships, marine battleships, or destroyed buildings, and form a giant robot instantly. He wouldn't even be limited to General Franky's size. He could build a mech the size of Pika. Franky loves docking. Imagine him magnetically docking the entire Thousand Sunny onto his back as a jetpack. He could create railguns, which Kid does, but Franky understands the engineering behind them better. He could create complex moving machinery just by magnetizing parts. Awakening this fruit would allow him to magnetize the environment. He could turn the enemy's weapons against them, or simply magnetize an opponent to the floor so they can't move while he blasts them with a radical beam. For a man who builds his strength from metal, becoming the Lord of Magnetism is the super upgrade. Now we're getting to the really broken stuff. Nami is already a glass cannon. She hits like a truck with Zeus but can't take one. She controls the weather using science. There's one fruit that stands above all others for her, and honestly, I agree with the popular consensus here, but for a different reason. The Goro Goro Nomi, aka Enel's Rumble Rumble fruit. Oda confirmed this in the SBS, saying Nami would be invincible. But let's look at why. Nami is the only person in the world who can sense the weather with her body. She predicts cyclones before they happen. If she became lightning, she could merge her consciousness with the electromagnetic field of the area. She could hear conversations via electrical waves just like Enel. But unlike Enel, Nami understands weather science. She would superheat the air to create low pressure zones, spawning instant tornadoes. She could create thunderclouds instantly without needing Zeus, though Zeus would probably love eating her excess energy. She gains the speed of lightning, solving her biggest weakness, mobility. She can turn into electricity to dodge attacks. And let's talk about the climb attack. With her as a battery, she doesn't need to charge it or spin it to create bubbles. She is the charge. Nami with this fruit is a literal weather goddess. She could sink fleets just by deciding to summon a storm. In terms of destructive power, she might even rival Luffy. Honestly, if Nami really had this fruit, we might need to have a new captain. But what about the boss, Knight of the Sea, Jinbe? Now, I'll explain why his fruit choice is so genius in a moment, but first we have to understand the problem. Finding a fruit for Jinbe is tricky because he's a fish man. If he eats a fruit, he loses the ability to swim in the sea, which is his greatest asset. However, there is a fruit that allows him to swim, where no fish man has swum before. The Sui Nomi, swim fruit. Wait, didn't Oda give this to Sanji? Yes, but I think it belongs on Jinbe. This fruit allows the user to swim through solid matter, ground, walls, rock, as if it were water. Jinbe is a master of fishman karate. The core principle of fishman karate is manipulating the water in the atmosphere and the water inside living beings. It relies on the fluid motion of the body. If Jinbe can swim through the ground, the entire battlefield becomes his ocean. He can dive underground, pick up speed, and launch a demon brick fist emerging from the floor directly into an enemy's chin. But here's the real kicker: the friction and fluid mechanics. Fishman karate moves using shockwaves that travel through the air. If the ground is water to Jinbe, he can send shockwaves through the earth. He could punch a building on the left side, and the shockwave would travel through the stone walls and hit an enemy on the right side. He becomes a land shark. He retains his fishman strength and speed, but now he's not limited to the coast. He can drag enemies into the stone and leave them there to suffocate. It covers the one weakness of a fishman on land. With the Sui Nomi, the land is the sea. He would arguably be the strongest hand-to-hand combatant on the ground because you literally can't hit him. He would just splash into the concrete and reappear behind you. With these powers in the crew, even Wano would have ended in 10 minutes. Kaido, Big Mom, relics of the past. Oda knew what he was doing because I don't really think One Piece would have been running for this long if the Straw Hats all had devil fruits. Or would it? What if maybe there was a pirate crew that was so overpowered that put even them to shame? Well, that's the subject of this other video. Click on this video to see what the strongest One Piece crew ever could look like. Go ahead, click it.